Hi, it's Katrina! From a gilded skull with teeth to mysterious fires caused by a painting, here are 10 haunted artifacts scientists can't explain. Number 10. The Begging Bowl. The begging bowl is an ornately carved skull used in Tibet. Also called a kapala, it is used for special rituals and to place offerings. This one is a highly decorated and gilded monkey skull. Tibetan monks once used all types of skulls, including those of humans, to appease angry spirits, using them as offering plates for wine, bread, and even blood, which was believed to drive the evil spirits away from the holy place. During the 1950s, a man brought the begging bowl with him to the United States. He regularly fed wine and blood to the skull to avoid feeling tormented by the artifact. He stored it in a locked box with a special knife drawer on the bottom. Rumor says that he and his family made sure to always feed the bowl to perpetuate his family's good fortune. If not, the spirit would get angry and harm would come to them. The begging bowl's age is unknown, and its owner passed it down to his grandson, who neglected to feed the skull as his grandfather had. Then, at some point, the knife in the lower drawer disappeared. The skull's new owner began sensing a heavy electric air around the artifact, and it made him incredibly uneasy. To distance himself from the begging bowl, he donated it to the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and the Occult, owned by paranormal investigators Dana and Greg Newkirk. I don't blame him for not wanting that thing in the house, do you? Number 9. The Hands Resist Him. Created by artist Bill Stoneham in 1972, The Hands Resist Him is a painting depicting a boy and girl doll standing beside one another in front of a glass door. From behind the door, several hands are pressed up against the glass, leaving eerie shadows as if they were trying to reach the children. The boy in the painting is Stoneham's depiction of himself as a 5-year-old, and the doorway represents the line dividing the living world and the realm of fantasies and impossibilities. Actor John Marley, who played Jack Woltz in The Godfather, owned The Hands Resist Him before it ended up for sale on eBay in February 2000. The elderly California couple selling the painting had found it at the site of an old brewery. Their listing implies that the artwork was haunted or cursed, stating that the characters moved within the painting during the night, and that they even exited the painting from time to time. The sellers even posted photos that they cited as evidence of the girl in the painting threatening the little boy with a gun. A disclaimer at the bottom of the listing absolved the sellers of all liability after a new owner purchased it. The listing garnered over 30,000 views, and the painting sold to the Perception Gallery in Grand Rapids, Michigan for a winning bid of $1,025. The gallery reached out to Stoneham, who was surprised about all the stories of his work being haunted. But the rumors proved beneficial when he was commissioned to paint several sequels and a prequel to The Hands Resist Him. The images supposedly showing a gun in the little girl's hands are, according to Stoneham, a dry cell battery and tangled wires. While the artist seemed doubtful that his painting was haunted, he did admit that the gallery owner where it was first displayed and the art critic that reviewed it both died within a year of going near it. Number 8. Busbys stoop chair. A haunted oak chair known as the Busbys stoop chair and the dead man's chair is reportedly responsible for so many deaths, its owner had to get rid of it and donated it to the Thirsk Museum in England. It all started in 1702 in North Yorkshire when Thomas Busby, a thief and a drunkard, had an argument with his father-in-law. They were both petty criminals, and for whatever reason, Busby just couldn't take it anymore and killed him. The story goes that Busby always drank at the same tavern and sat in his favorite chair, and that day, his father-in-law decided to sit in it. Regardless of what really happened, Busby was sentenced to hang. But before then, he was allowed one last drink at his favorite tavern. The story goes that there, he cursed the chair and yelled that whoever sat in it would die soon after. He was hung near the inn, which was renamed the Busby Stoop Inn. He is said to haunt the inn and the surrounding area, and apparently he made sure that no one would sit in his chair, even from the grave. During World War II, some Canadian airmen who were stationed nearby stopped into the pub. They later claimed that anyone who sat in the chair throughout the night never returned from subsequent bombing missions. A construction worker was dared to sit in the chair by his friends, and he fell through a roof and died later that day. A delivery man asked about the legend and sat in the chair, and later that night he died in a car crash. Other airmen from the nearby base would stop by the pub, sit in the famous chair on purpose, defying the curse, and then later died in accidents. The curse persisted into the 1970s, and in 1978, the owner gave it up to the Thirsk Museum. People who had followed the legend said that the chair had claimed 63 lives. The owner explicitly asked them to hang the chair so that no one could sit in it ever, and the story goes that the museum has never broken its promise. Do you believe in the haunted chair? Would you dare to sit in it? Let me know in the comments below. And be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Number 7. Ruby. A haunted baby doll named Ruby came to the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and the Occult from a family who had treasured her for generations as an heirloom. During Ruby's time spent with her original owners, they became convinced that the doll was causing their children to suffer from chronic illnesses. Their little girl passed away from tuberculosis with Ruby in her arms, and whenever other family members went near the doll, they experienced symptoms such as headaches, allergies, exhaustion, and severe nausea. Ruby also seemed to move around on her own and made eerie sounds, according to the family, who began believing that their deceased daughter's spirit had attached itself to the toy. They summoned a psychic medium for help, encouraging the spirit to move on, but the efforts failed, and Ruby was passed around from one family household to another, ultimately ending up in an attic and then finally at the museum. Many psychics believe that dolls are perfect empty shells for spirits to inhabit, so it's not good to have too many of them. For a while, Ruby sat on a shelf. Suddenly, however, visitors began feeling overwhelmed by maternal urges near her and would hold the doll, rocking her back and forth. Ruby still seems to have this effect on people, and thankfully, she no longer causes anyone to become sick. She is both sweet and creepy. Do you like dolls, or do you think they're kind of scary? Let me know in the comments below. Number 6. The Crying Boy. The curse of the crying boy began during the 1950s, when Italian painter Giovanni Bragolini created a series of portraits of a tearful little boy in honor of World War II orphans. These paintings were popular in England, where they were mass-produced and sold throughout the country. In September 1985, news broke of a couple named Ron and Mary Hall losing their home to a fire, with their copy of the Crying Boy painting being the only item to survive. Peter Hall, Ron's brother and a firefighter, claimed that he had been to many fires where everything but the crying boy was destroyed. People responded overwhelmingly to the news article, and mass hysteria ensued. The next morning alone, hundreds of readers had contacted the newspaper with their own stories of the crying boy painting remaining intact after a devastating fire. Some claimed that the artwork had even killed a loved one, while others said that they tried burning it and it wouldn't catch fire. Not everyone bought into this superstition, including Alan Wilkinson, a firefighter who blamed the repeated fires on carelessness, while he also admitted to attending over 50 Crying Boy blazes since 1973. In response to the widespread panic, Calvin Mackenzie, editor of The Sun at the time, told readers to send their Crying Boy paintings into the publication. While some people claimed that the artwork would not light on fire, newspaper staff had no problem burning over 2,500 copies that Halloween. The hysteria eventually died down, but the curse of the crying boy remained very much alive and well to some, and many still wonder if it's real. Number 5. James Dean's car. On September 30th, 1955, actor James Dean died in a car crash while driving his Porsche 550 Spyder, which he affectionately called Little Bastard. He had purchased the car and had it customized just a week earlier. That day, the actor drove his new ride to a Los Angeles restaurant, where he dined with his friend, British actor Alec Guinness. Guinness, a superstitious man by nature, later wrote in his diary that the car looked sinister to him, and that a voice inside of him told him never to get into the vehicle. Dean laughed at the idea of his car being inherently evil, and on the day of his death, he and his friend Rolf Wutherich went to Competition Motors in Hollywood to prepare Little Bastard for an upcoming race in Salina. Dean had experience in auto racing and had even competed himself. The pair decided to drive the car to Salina to break it in, and while rolling along at 85 miles per hour, after already receiving one speeding ticket, Dean crashed the Porsche into a Ford. He was just 24 years old. The crash killed Dean, and his wrecked car was sold to a man named George Barris for $2,500. The car itself, as well as its parts, which were used for building other cars, were connected with numerous accidents, causing serious injuries and at least 2 deaths. Naturally, the superstition emerged that the Porsche was cursed. Its twisted heap of debris was used in numerous safety exhibits, including one in Miami in 1960. Then the wreckage and the truck towing it vanished and were never seen again. Number 4. Bassano Vase. The dark tale of a 15th century silver vase called the Bassano Vase started when a bride in Napoli, Italy received it as a wedding gift, but she never made it to the altar. Legend goes that someone murdered her on her wedding night with the vase in her hands. The Bassano vase was passed down through the woman's family, and everyone who owned it seemed to die unexpectedly. Eventually, one of the owners put the vase in the ground, presumably to distance themselves from the evil artifact as much as possible. The artifact reappeared centuries later in 1988, when a young man supposedly dug it up wherever its previous owners had buried it, at a location that has never been named specifically. Kind of like Jumanji. It was accompanied by a note stating, "Beware, this vase brings death." It was auctioned off at an undisclosed auction house, with the note left out of its description. I mean, who wants to buy a haunted vase on purpose? It was sold for $2,250 to an unnamed pharmacist, who died less than 3 months later. 3 of the vase's subsequent owners reportedly died tragically. Nobody knows exactly what happened to the allegedly cursed object. Legend holds that its last owner threw it out a window in a desperate attempt to get away from it, and the vase fell onto a police officer below. The individual was fined for littering and gladly paid the fine, but wanted nothing to do with the vase. Police attempted to place it in a museum, but failed because no establishments wanted to risk being subjected to its curse. Someone supposedly buried the vase again at an undisclosed location where it remains today. Number 3. The Hope Diamond. However beautiful and valuable it may be, the Hope Diamond has a sinister past that includes a reputation for causing death and misfortune to many of its former owners. The 45.52 carat gem, worth an estimated $200 to $350 million, was likely mined in India, then traveled around the world and through numerous hands before ultimately ending up at the Smithsonian Natural History Museum, where it resides today. The alleged curse started when a thief stole the diamond out of a statue and suffered a gruesome death. Over the years, those who owned or even touched the Hope Diamond could count on experiencing any number of misfortunes, including divorce, suicide, torture, insanity, financial ruin, decapitation, loss of children, or some other form of torture or death. The diamond was held by the French royal family for a very long time until the French Revolution. Louis XIV and Marie Antoinette were said to be victims of the curse. It was then stolen and reappeared in England. The later owners were oblivious to the curse until it was too late, with one getting killed and another mauled by dogs. Harry Winston, the gem's final owner, dedicated it to the Smithsonian in 1958, and the curse seems to have ended there. Even though it's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, he apparently decided to send the stone through the mail. Some speculate that the curse was a made-up story meant to increase the Hope Diamond's value, a strategy that is known to be used from time to time. But if you take one look at this magnificent rock, it's hard to believe that anyone ever thought it needed help proving its worth. The fantastic history, size, and cut speak for itself. Number 2. The Anguished Man. Considered to be one of the world's most haunted artifacts, a frightening oil painting called The Anguished Man was created by an unknown artist and at an unknown time, allegedly using paint with human blood mixed into it. The painting ended up in the hands of a North England man named Sean Robinson, who got it from his grandmother after a friend had given it to her. Robinson's wife disliked the painting, so for some time he kept it in their basement. Finally, in 2010, he brought it upstairs and moved it into the bedroom. Robinson has had the painting for over 3 decades, but it was then that his family started experiencing the painting's haunting effects. They claim that it makes terrifying noises during the night, including groans, screams, and what sounds like the fabric tearing. The family has also witnessed a shadowy figure in their home and heard whispers and crying. Some people accuse the Robinsons of making up the story about the artwork in a bid to gain fame, but even many who doubt the credibility of their story would admittedly never take their chances by hanging it in their home. Would you? Number 1. Woman of Lem. The Woman of Lem, also called the Goddess of Death, is a small pure limestone statue that was unearthed in Cyprus in 1878. It's one of hundreds of similar statues of varying sizes and shapes that have been found on the island, but oddly, there is no archaeological record of the excavation of the Woman of Lem statue, including who found it. The artifact earned its nickname as the Goddess of Death due to the numerous fatalities it's been connected to over the years. Its first owner, a man named Lord Elfont, passed away within 6 years of coming into possession of it, and several of his family members also died. The family of another owner, Ivor Minucci, died within 4 years of owning the statue. Lord Thompson Noel, the third owner, had the same thing happen. The last owners of the statue donated it to the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh, where the curator who handled it died less than a year later. It remains in a glass display case in the museum to this day, where it seems to be kept at a safe enough distance from people to cause further harm. Thanks for watching! Do you believe any of these objects are haunted? Would you have any of them in your home? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you are new here. See you next time! Bye!